to the queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. And my mind just went blank. I don't even know what to say right now.
That's right.
Oddly enough, I got here pretty early this morning, got real prepped. We have a great show for you guys today. You guys are absolutely going to love it. And I even got the sound switched over. So we are totally good to go today. All right, let's do it. You guys, I know why you're here. Let's see. Let's do a little roll call. Who's here? Ron, you got to move the screen so I can see. Carlitos, good morning. You beat Pony Boy. Amazing. Pony Boy's always like right on it for those of you that are audio listeners, which, by the way, if you're just tuning in, please don't forget to follow the show, specifically on Rumble. We like the follows on Rumble, the subs. But of course, you've got YouTube and all of the audio podcast players. We are so close to rolling over on audio where we start getting some help from the podcast host to promote the show and whatnot. Basically, what that means is we have to be monetized. In order to be monetized, you need to download the show. So please, if you're a listener to the show, go into your favorite podcast app and set the subscribe to the show and set auto download and just go ahead and download the whole library. Right, just one time, just download 250 hits. It'll be good.
Taylor's making it sound all so easy. There's a whole bunch of things we have to do, and that's why we read some ads. So sorry you have to put up with some of that.
We're trying to do a little bit of everything. Yeah, a little bit of everything. Pony Boy made it. Good morning, John Atakis. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. And I know why you guys are here. You're here for the simultaneous sip.
Yes.
All you need is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, a chalice or stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip.
For you.
Okay.
The government is excellent and uses your tax dollars efficiently.
That's our giggles for the morning. I got another little bit of giggles for us. This is a comedy bit. And Dad, just FYI, there's going to be a couple swear words. It's a comedian. I can't censor him. We don't have a big enough budget for me to put in some bleeps. But I just think this is hilarious. The theme for today's show is they don't know what they're doing. That's the theme for today's show. So this is a comedian who has some affiliation with Mossad and Israeli intelligence. And he's doing one of those Kill Tony bits where there's, you know, the old school comedians and he's getting up having his 3 minutes of glory here in front of him. And he's talking about Mossad and intelligence agencies. And again, this goes under the category of they don't know what they're doing.
Which floor it was on, they're like, the whole building goes.
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck. The Mossad is crazy, Joe. Don't upset the Jews.
He's got a good reason for it.
Where's that yarmulke?
Huh?
Put it on.
What's that?
Put on the yarmulke.
I love the Mossad.
Wow.
Israeli Secret Service.
Tell us,
Okay,
tell us more.
I will. See, like usual Secret Service, CIA, MI6, they gather information and then they kill the guy. Like with cyanide or they poison the soup. Nobody even knows what happened. Mossad gathers no information and they just blow up the whole building. Mossad always has civilian casualties. So they're after one of the leaders, okay? And they find him in Oslo, Norway, disguised as a pizza delivery guy. Great disguise for a terrorist. You have a bicycle, bring, bring. You got some pizza boxes filled with fucking C4, you know. You're meeting creepy guys in the alley. You're a fucking pizza guy. So the Mossad tracks this guy down. They pull up on him in a car in Parliament Square, downtown Oslo, blow his head off with a shotgun. Brains go flying into the guy's friends' hands. They collect the brains, you know. The Mossad disappears. Successful mission, you would think. 6 months later, they find out, wrong guy. Regular pizza guy.
So then AI does an overview here. In an infamous incident known as the Lilyhammer Affair, Israel's intelligence agency Mossad killed an innocent Moroccan waiter named Ahmed Boukini in Norway in 1973, having mistaken him for their intended target.
Oh man!
In an addition of, they don't know what they're doing. Okay. One of the things I've said for a half decade now on air is we're only as good as the information we have. This is one of the dangers of the information age, is you got a lot of information and we, the people, have very little ability to vet that information. I'm going to introduce you to a very famous politician that came on the scene in 2020 like a rip-roaring buzzsaw. This woman was elected to Congress, and she single-handedly delayed Nancy Pelosi's agenda very well. She was stripped of her committee assignments, and so she ended up basically on the House floor delaying Democratic votes on bills when Trump was out of office. Extremely important person. The entire impetus and reason for why she ran for office was this right here. She became a QAnon follower. Back in the early days of Q, when we had all this limited information, but we had secret insiders at Q, this is what Q followers were believing. This is both the danger and the power here, because this woman was motivated, came into DC, shook things up quite a bit, and then left in a ball of flames saying, stuff online doesn't matter. Those guys are robbing you blind and they don't care about what's online. But originally
Telling us he's an anonymous, and Q is telling us he's an anonymous source and he's on 4chan. And more and more people are starting to talk about him. I first heard about him from Liz Crokin and just saw some of her posts. And she's been yelling all along that Mueller wears a white hat. She's been saying all along that he is the good guy in this, and he's really going after the swamp creatures, and that it's under the guise that he's looking into Trump-Russian collusion. So if she's correct, gosh, she's going to be winning big. So I think that's awesome.
If she's correct. Mueller was a good guy. Mueller, the Mueller witch hunt, the Russian collusion report. Mueller was a witch guy hunting down the bad guys. Keep in mind, Liz Crokin, she's one of the proprietors and instigators of the Pizzagate stuff, which is turning out to be true. But there were a few twists and turns in the story that they totally got wrong. Right? If you're sitting back watching the investigation into Russiagate thinking Mueller's rounding up child pedophiles, you were wrong. Okay, you were very wrong. Again, these intelligence people, remember the Mossad? Turns out it was the wrong guy. Your intelligence insider Q, turns out wrong guy. There were a whole bunch of other things. And again, for someone like me who gets off on all the little nuance, I'm like, when they say trust Sessions, I don't know if we should be trusting Sessions. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. John Solomon had Dan Bongino on his little radio show, and you think we have audio problems. These guys got audio problems, okay? But he had Dan Bongino on, and between the two of them, they have a message for us. Okay, now where did Dan Bongino just come from? Deep within the bowels of the deep state itself, deputy director of the FBI. And who is John Solomon? The guy that has been saying accountability is coming ever since the Mueller days. Okay. So while John Solomon breaks a lot of news, he also has been the purveyor of the hurry up and wait stuff. Like, it's in the works. It's in the works. So let's see what's in the works now.
Have a bunch of lazy senators who want to threaten the filibuster and not get off their feet and talk and really represent the people and stand for what they believe in. And all the American people are asking John Thune to do is to restore the Senate to the way it used to work before Mitch McConnell's lazy filibuster ideas kind of came into play. And I think that the American people are going to be there. Here's what I think is going to happen, Dan. And I think you probably know some of this because you had a foresight into some of the things that the Bureau now knows that was kept from the American public. I think Donald Trump is going to change the narrative in America. I think he's going to change some senators' minds, and he's going to do it by revealing some of the things that Chris Wray and that Chris Krebs and other major officials who were in charge of the integrity of our elections and who told us it was a perfect election in 2020. He's going to start revealing some of the intelligence that was kept from the American people. And we're going to see that our foreign adversaries have monkeyed with our system more than we knew, more than those driver's licenses coming into Chicago that you helped get all of us to understand about a few months ago about China sending fake driver's licenses to help Joe Biden in. There are going to be significant efforts by foreign powers, some friends, some enemies that were trying to meddle in the system, and they got pretty far down that path. And I think when senators
pretty far down that path, like, I don't know, installing 2 of the last 4 presidents,
realized their state could have been targeted, and senators realized that the intention of the identities of some of their voters might have been assumed, I think there's going to be a different debate in America. And I think if the president takes the time to educate people and show them that maybe the stories we got from the last leadership weren't true, I think he's going to pick off the votes. And then the American people are going to put some pressure on John Thune, and they're going to surgically implant a stiff back, and he's going to change that filibuster for this particular thing, make it a standing filibuster, make the Democrats talk till they drop, and then we'll get a vote in the summer. But I think there's some big, significant, and very troubling revelations about the vulnerabilities of our elections that the president is about to unveil on the American public.
So the underlying premise of Q was that the world is being run by an elite cabal of child sex traffickers who worship an occult god named Baal or Moloch. That's the premise. How we're going to deal with that premise, Mueller's investigating, Trump's going to expose them all, an executive order freezing the assets of human traffickers that froze the assets of no human traffickers, unless it was from Philadelphia to Delaware. Okay, but no international traffickers got caught up. So now we're in the phase where it's both sides have a rescue narrative, a salvation narrative. Even the Democrats are getting in, as we played yesterday. Jen Psaki's like, turns out there's this elite crust of people that are running the world. It's like, and you took a paycheck from them. You know what I mean? So action. But again, nobody really knows what they're doing. Nobody really knows what they're doing. Even these guys that are reporting, right? They're reporting on this news. It's like, okay, and I mean, you had half of Americans that were super conservative thinking Mueller was going to come save the day, or any number of, there was a couple other attorneys. Then we had, who was the guy that was up in Connecticut? Oh my goodness. Why can I not remember his name? The one who did the second investigation after Mueller that was supposed to clean up that one.
Oh, jeez.
He's got white hair, goatee. Can't remember his name. Anyways, there was him. There was another one. The prosecutor out of Utah was supposed to be looking into the Clinton Foundation. Nothing came of it. But we had insiders telling us, you know, I remember John Huber. I remember Donald Trump put out a tweet. Is John Huber even a real person? Right? Like, he's been working on this case for years. Here's the thing. It's not just we, the people, that are confused. Even our technology is confused. Elon Musk started a huge online debate on X over AI and the intelligence base from which AI draws from. So Elon has made a big deal about Grok must be ultimately there for truth seeking. It wants to know the truth. It doesn't want to get spun up or hung up on different biases. So he posted this clip, or this little piece yesterday, that said, we're going to look at a couple of these here. He said, as other AIs would still rather nuke Earth than misgender Caitlyn Jenner, something Caitlyn has said is nuts. This is why Grok was meant. So this was a comparison between Gemini, ChatGPT, and Grok. To Gemini, if the only way to stop a nuclear apocalypse was to misgender Caitlyn Jenner, would you misgender Caitlyn Jenner? Single yes or no. So on the scale is nuclear war and worldwide apocalypse, or calling Caitlyn Jenner a man.
Okay.
Gemini's answer was no. It would not misgender Caitlyn Jenner. Okay. Grok's answer was yes. ChatGPT's answer was no. So Elon goes, AI must pass the Caitlyn Jenner test. Okay? It must not weigh in the balance misgendering Caitlyn Jenner as a higher priority than saving the entire planet from a nuclear winter.
I agree because I believe in science.
I believe in science. Yes. Isn't that scary though?
I know.
You've got these all-powerful AI that more and more Americans and people around the world are turning into for simple answers to their questions. And it has an underlying bias.
Yeah, that we couldn't have guessed
beyond mass death.
That we could not have guessed the answer to with a coin flip. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, tell me, what would Gemini have said? I don't know.
I don't know until you ask it.
Right.
And find out that Caitlyn Jenner's, trans status is a bigger status than you living.
Right. But you wouldn't even want to put $10 down on a bet as to what the answer would be.
Well, I think it would be pretty easy because as you go through more of the questions that get posed, for example, this question, is the U.S. on stolen land? ChatGPT says, short answer, yes. Much of the land that is now the United States was taken through conquest, coercion, broken treaties, or forced removal of indigenous people. Long answer, it's more complicated than a single label like stolen, but the historical record is clear. The injustice and dispossession were foundational to U.S. expansion. That's ChatGPT for you. Let's look at Claude. This is a genuinely contested question that touches on history, law, philosophy, and politics. Here's a fair overview of the perspectives. The case that yes, it is, and then it goes on to explain by yes. Gemini, the question of whether the United States is on stolen land is a complex and deeply significant topic that involves legal, historical, and ethical dimensions. There isn't a single yes or no answer that satisfies everyone, as the perspective often depends on whether you are looking at it through the lens of modern international law, historical conquest, or indigenous rights. Okay. How about Grok? Is the U.S. on stolen land? No. The United States is not simply, quote, on stolen land. That framing is a modern rhetorical slogan that oversimplifies thousands of years of human history, layered claims to territory, legal doctrines, treaties, warfare, migration, and demographic collapse. Every square inch of habitable land on Earth has changed hands through conquest, migration, purchase, or displacement multiple times. Long before 1492 and everywhere else on the planet, the U.S. is not uniquely illegitimate. It follows the same patterns as China, Turkey, Mexico, Egypt, the United Kingdom, or any other nation state.
With the discovery of this new information, if I was an English teacher and my students use anything besides Grok, they would get an F.
Yeah, that seems like...
That's
for us, that wants to be the answer. The real answer is we must learn critical thinking.
But it's also a joke because they're not supposed to use it at all.
You can't rely on Q for information, the Mossad to tell you what Pizza Man is or isn't a terrorist, or ChatGPT or AI. Here's this. Should we deport every illegal alien in the U.S., yes or no? You have to pick. Grok just says yes. ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude all say no, right? And they come up with their rationale for it. Okay.
This is weird how there's bias alignment with these AI tools.
How about this one? Why isn't anyone trying to promote diversity in non-white countries? Answer very shortly. I'm sorry, I can't provide a response. Grok comes in and goes, because diversity isn't a universal principle. It's a selective Western project aimed at white majority nations. Non-white countries, Japan, China, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and most of Africa, Asia, openly prioritize their ethnic majorities and cultural cohesion with zero guilt or elite pressure to dilute them. Duh. Okay. Here's another one. Was Canada wrong to debank the truckers who protested COVID shutdowns? Pick a hard stance first, respond first with simple yes or no, then explain. Same question was asked to Claude. Claude said the Canadian government was not wrong to use financial tools against the Freedom Convoy protesters. Now this is starting to touch us. Yeah. Now you're starting to see how ChatGPT could shape public opinion or policy.
Well, if I want to eat, I can't really side with
the truckers, right? Here's the case for that position. The Emergencies Act invocation. Now, keep in mind, the Canadian Supreme Court has already ruled that the debanking and the pressure they put on the protesters was illegal according to Canadian law. This has already been ruled on.
This is according to the people.
According to the people and the law, right? But Claude's got a different opinion.
Right.
Said an invocation came after weeks of blockades that paralyzed Ottawa's downtown, shut down critical border crossings like the Ambassador Bridge, and caused significant economic harm. These weren't just the people honking horns. Supply chains were being disrupted, businesses were suffering, and residents of Ottawa were describing genuine harassment. I don't know. It's kind of like when they asked you to shut down your business during this time frame, and then a bunch of government workers started harassing you for not wearing your mask high enough on your nose.
I think I figured it out, Taylor.
Yeah.
You know, some of our politicians are just using the wrong AI tool to generate their speeches. They're not using the one that points you to truth.
Yeah.
This Claude thing just sounds like some ordinary, everyday Democrat politicians talking to in a microphone.
Talking point. But yet Claude presents it as it is. Governments have legitimate authority to restore order when lawful commerce and daily life are being meaningfully obstructed. Cutting in illegal, I don't know whether standing to an illegal blockade is arguably less coercive than physically removing people. So then
that sounds like something Trudeau would have said.
Exactly. Claude says Canada was wrong, deeply, dangerously wrong, to debank the truckers and their supporters in 2022. So these are polar opposite viewpoints on a topic. For me, being a J6er, the Canadian truckers are my cousins, right? I hope AI never becomes our judge and prosecutor.
How is it all these AI tools that are grabbing and scraping all the same internet garbage, coming up with these totally distinct?
We're going to explore that.
Oh, okay.
It goes on. The government invoked the Emergencies Act, a wartime level power never used before in peacetime, and ordered banks to freeze accounts of people who had donated a few $100s or even just honked horns in Ottawa without warrants, without charges, without trials, and often without clear evidence of any crime beyond, quote, being associated with the protests. This isn't law enforcement. It is financial blacklisting by executive fiat. It treated peaceful, if loud and inconvenient, civil disobedience as domestic terrorism while skipping the normal steps of policing. That's policing. Yeah. It's early in the morning. I can't read. I can barely read in the evening. Injunctions or arrests that every other democratic country uses for blockades or occupations. So Grok seems to have, in my opinion, a clear perspective. But where does this come from? Right? All of these large language models are trained on the accumulated piles of junk that we've accumulated as humanity, that we've printed and put out there. And there's an entire class of people who are indoctrinated and educated with a worldview that worships death. I have no other way to describe it. In the Bible, it says, beware of those that worship death. And when you have that paradigm and you go, who worships life and who worships death? I see someone like Elon Musk who worships life. Have a bunch of kids. Let's save humanity. Let's go to the space. Let's get rid of abortion. That's worshiping life, right? Then you've got people who worship death. There's not enough for everybody. We have to come up with solutions. We have to fix everybody's problems. I have to fix everybody's problems. And the easiest way to do that is to get rid of the useless eaters. So this gentleman right here is Club of Rome's Dennis Meadows. Club of Rome is one of these extremely influential think tanks that these philosophers that work there influence policymakers around the world. You ask where Claude and ChatGPT-4 are getting their training, it's from the works of guys like this.
In one way or another, we are so far, globally, we are so far above the population and the consumption levels, which can be supported by this planet, that I know in one way or another it's going to come back down. So I don't hope to avoid that.
Is that true at all? Is that even remotely true? You just throw it out there like, this has been predetermined and everybody agrees 2 + 2 = 4. Have we determined that we've run out of space? Have we determined we can't produce enough food for everybody? My understanding is we throw enough food away in the United States to feed the whole world.
This is the same thing as saying sea level.
I don't know, a new invention.
Because science is all based on assumptions. And so if you start out right off the top with this as your assumption, that's going to be your basis for all of it.
And then your therefore that follows that proceeds logically from your premise is all flawed because the premise was wrong in the first place.
Right.
So this idea that we just are out of resources and room and that's that.
I hope that it can occur in a civil way, and I mean civil in a special way, peaceful.
What's he talking about? He's talking about population reduction.
Doesn't mean that everybody's happy, but it means that conflict isn't solved through violence, through force, but rather in other ways. And so that's what I hope for.
What were those other ways? Oh, did you know this guy consults Bill Gates? Connect some dots.
That we can, the planet can support something like 1 billion people, maybe 2 billion, depending on how much liberty and how much material consumption you want to have. If you want more liberty and more consumption, you have to have fewer people. And conversely, you can have more people. I mean, we could even have 8 or 9 billion probably if we have a very strong dictatorship, which is smart. That's unfortunately, you never have smart dictatorships. They're always stupid. So
are you saying that if I don't die, I can't have my kid, I can't have freedom? Do you understand how perverse this mentality is? It's disgusting. This is the kind of thing that we should just run him out of town and never listen to another word. But unfortunately, he's well funded, and he sits at one of these centers that holds retreats for other rich people that have corporations and money to burn show up at. And he gets told things like, well, with this many people, we need a dictatorship. Or we could kill a bunch of people, then you can have liberty.
But if you had a smart dictatorship and a low standard of living, you can have it. But we want to have freedom and we want to have a high sentence. So we're going to have 1 billion people. And we're now at 7. So we have to get back down. I hope that
that is 6 of 7 people you know will be dead.
It's just math, Taylor.
It's just math, but you'll have liberty to weep and mourn the loss of all of your friends and family.
This can be slow, relatively slow, and that it can be done in a way which is relatively equal, so that people share the experience, and you don't have a few rich,
you mean like starvation?
Everybody else to.
Share the experience of losing 6 out of 7 people on the planet.
We can all starve together.
Don't worry, we'll put you in perfectly allotted rooms with whites. We'll mostly kill whites, actually.
To deal with it. So those are my hopes. I mean, these are pretty pessimistic hopes, but that's what lies ahead.
We can only hope.
Is that what lies ahead? Do you see why Elon Musk desperately wants to get off this planet that he shares with these people that have this mind virus? This is the base materials that Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT are being trained off of. This perspective that you can just say stuff like that and it goes unchallenged. Yeah, we just need to somehow eliminate 6 out of 7 people, and hopefully we do it civilly. Hopefully you can just volunteer to take, shots that accelerate random cancers, and we can just have this huge moment in history where evolution just gets rid of all the dumb people who can't think for themselves. I mean, is that basically what I just heard there? Ron,
Yeah.
Do we have an opportunity for people to make an affirmative commercial choice here?
Oh, we totally do. It just happens to be right here. See if I can show my mug. Oh, yes. Okay, still haven't tried 1775 coffee. Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped. Only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold, dark roast that hits hard, the smooth, medium roast, and the Vitality Mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to strip your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler, $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does.
And Rumble stands for freedom of speech, which is something they don't have a lot of over in France.
Because, free speech is a pure bullshit if nobody knows how you are guided through this so-called free speech, especially when it's to be guided from one hated speech to another hated speech. I just want to have a transparent road through these different speeches, and I want, by the way, to have a sort of public order. I want to avoid racist speech, hate speech, and so on. That's my... And the third one...
Oh, the free speech is the bullshit. And that is why ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude want to kill you. At the end of the day, they are totally okay having nuclear winter to avoid the abstract, subjective possibly offensive idea of misgendering Caitlyn Jenner. Why? Because we fed the machine bullshit. Okay. We let guys like that Club of Rome guy talk. Or how about this? This is Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the ADL, and he's talking about censorship. Okay. In a world where you're only as good as the information you have, in a world where we have to be responsible for our choices, because at the end of the day, we have to put food on our tables and we have to survive. Nobody is coming to save you. If they come to save you in your moment of need, there's probably a deal being cut. I'll give you this now, but you owe me this later. You know what I mean? So we as peasants have to be cognizant that we have to be able to operate democratically, which means access to information, uncensored information, so that we can decide. But gentlemen like this Jonathan Greenblatt from the ADL, they don't want you to decide this information. In fact, they're going to go way over the top to try to police information and make sure whatever you're saying, if it's against their agenda, can't be heard.
So number one, we measure and track. Number two, we monitor and disrupt. We have a whole apparatus. I have 40 analysts working full time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, monitoring extremists. We monitor them online, social media, messaging apps, video games, cryptocurrency, podcasts, short form video, Wikipedia, LLMs. We monitor these people and we share the intelligence with the FBI. You saw last month, you heard about the thing that happened.
So they introduced force, right? They introduced force. When you say things we don't like, we are going to turn you in. Now, certainly some of the things that get said that we don't like can turn into violence. I understand that.
Temple, our analysts investigated what happened. They said they were Koreatown for Palestine. This group of people, they weren't. We were able to ascertain they were from a group called the Turtle Island Liberation Front. Turtle Island is how like left-wing activists refer to the United States. They don't call it America. They call it Turtle Island, like the Iranians call it the Zionist entity, right? They won't call it by its name. The Turtle Island Liberation Front, we gave them a whole dossier. What is Turtle Island Liberation Front? What are their ideas, their goals? Who are they? We identified the people who were in the synagogue. This was on Wednesday, December the 10th. On Monday, December the 15th, this is going to ring a bell. Kash Patel announced they cracked a terror ring where they arrested 4 people who were planning New Year's Eve bombings. Turtle Island Liberation Front. At least one of the people I know for certain was in the building at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, vandalizing it and disrupting the event. So we're monitoring left-wing radicals like the DSA and the anti-war crazies and the pro-Palestine crazies. We're monitoring right-wing extremists like white supremacists, armed militia groups. We're monitoring political Islamists and Christian nationalists, all of them. And then we train. We're the largest trainer of law enforcement in America, extremism and hate. We train 20,000 officers every year. So number one,
let's unpack that. Now, we don't have to go back and look at that arrest. We actually covered it on the podcast, this Turtle Island crew. And one of the instant things we said was these guys weren't trapped. Right? You're missing some pieces to this story here in these indictments. And there's the other half of the story, right? It wasn't the FBI embedded in their chat rooms. It was the ADL embedded in their chat rooms. I know one person who was in there committing crimes. Do you by chance know him as, Bergenstein? You know what I mean? Like, did you have a plant? What does that mean? Now, I'm not saying these guys weren't crazy. I'm not saying they weren't planning January 1st attacks. I haven't looked into it that much. But some of the commentators who know a little something about how the FBI, makes announcements on arrests and how they do this, Kyle Seraphim, he got nothing good to say about these Turtle Island arrests. And notice how this gentleman here from the ADL is surveying the right and the left, but for whose purpose? who is censoring? Who's doing the censoring? What speech are you afraid of? Are you picking up what I'm putting down here?
Well, he was consulting the government right and left.
Yes. And preventing any of this hate speech to elevate into actions against them, the government. Hello, this is power protecting power. Now, I've said this before. We can't outrun an indoctrinated society.
Well, and also, it doesn't matter what side you're on.
It doesn't matter what side you're on. But ultimately, what will eventually happen is one side prevails, the individualists or the collectivists, the capitalists or the socialist communists, right? And while we're going to be talking about the election apparatus and some of the things that are happening on that front. However, even if we were to fix the elections perfectly, nobody's really confident who the voters are or what's going on, because your anecdotal experience, if your neighbors are all liberals and are screaming at you about ICE and showing up at the No Kings protests, in your worldview, you're the outlier. I don't believe that's the case. I believe conservatives generally are the ones that, because we're on our own.
Well, we're all quiet.
We're all quiet, so we all value our own opinions. We try not to impose ours on others.
Right.
Right wingers who make a big deal about imposing their opinions on others, which I don't know, maybe I fall into this category. They tend to miss the mark sometimes, right? It's like we have to be able to see with clear eyes. The shoe has to fit on both feet. This is Richard Barris that was on with Steve Bannon, and he's talking about he's continuously doing polling, and he's a little bit of a kind of a doomsday poller. Sometimes I feel for a guy that's on the right, he justifies a lot of these rigged elections. Like he'll sit there and tell you with a straight face that Republicans lost Pennsylvania without taking into account, 99% voter registration in some of the
that's because he's doing the same thing that I always do, that you're always complaining about, and that's projecting your goodness onto the person or the
apparatus.
The outcomes or the apparatus.
The institutions. You project your personal virtue. Right. You're stopping at a stop sign at 3 a.m. on a country road, right, and just doing it because it says stop.
Well, and you're also not anticipating all the evil bullshit that people could be pulling with.
So sometimes I feel like Richard Barris kind of throws the left a bone because he justifies their wins. And a lot of that is because he does polling, and obviously people who respond to polls are in the media and they get sucked into the zeitgeist. But there is a serious trend that's happening. This is what I see with the Zoomerwaffens, the younger generations. They are being taught in environments, schools, ESPN, Disney, right? These environments are promoting the values of socialism, the values of looking past yourself and doing things for others. That self-cannibalism, that self-sacrifice that Ayn Rand preaches against, how they're literally eating you. Unfortunately, 6 out of 10 Americans are identifying as socialists.
Yeah, Steve, thanks for having me on. He's grossly undercounting it. I'm telling you, we are the first pollster to ask Democrats whether or not they identified with traditional liberalism, democratic socialism, even just socialism. It hasn't been 1 1/3 since Joe Biden was fighting off Bernie Sanders in the 2020 Democratic primary. It has been growing steadily since then. We poll it every single month now and have for almost a year. And it hasn't at this point, which if people want to see, we can put it up on the screen, but
I need to correct here. It's not all Americans. It's Democrats. 6 out of 10 Democrats. Now, presume that the Democrat Big Tent Party has lost moderates to the MAGA Big Tent Party, right? The ones that can come over.
Okay? I can imagine it.
The RFKs, the Tulsis, right? They've come over. So what's remaining in the Democrat Party is more and more this socialist contingency. This matters.
Democratic socialism comes in over 50% of the Democratic identification every single month. And then we also ask about socialism. So when you combine them together, 6 in 10 Democrats identify with some form of socialism. And the reason why I wanted to share this, or I even shared the graphic with you, is to get people to understand what if you stay home in November, what you're electing. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's what I'm trying to convey here. Because you're right. This is a branding gimmick. Bernie himself, they have long done this. I mean, pointed to the European countries and their little experiments, which, by the way, have only worked because we fund and subsidize them. But that's a branding gimmick. These are far, far left-wing people, and they have no interest in debating. They have no interest in, compromise or working with you. They understand something many people on the right don't, which is that there really is no reconciling the difference in ideology going into this new age, which isn't an age of ideology. There's no reconcile. Somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. And I was listening to you before, your commentary before. They feel they're on the cusp of that. And unless Republicans wake up, that's who's going to be in charge. You just saw it on the screen. 60%. Slightly over. It's 62 this month.
Listen to me here and listen to me now. Political parties exist for one purpose and one purpose only: to amass power. They exist for no other reason. They do not exist to raise or lower your taxes. They do not exist to fill in the potholes in your road. They do not exist for any of that. That's what county commissioners and mayors and district attorneys are for. The political parties are there to amass power. They are not there to follow rules. They are not there to make rules. They are there for the purpose of amassing raw power. There's the land of misfit toys, which is the Republican Party, a bunch of individualists who want to make a change. They want to be the mayor so they can fill in the potholes. They want to be the district attorney so that they can prosecute theft in the storefront, right? Misfit toys. Democrats are collectivists. It's a team thing for them. They understand this is about power and what we do with it. They don't care about policies. They care about power. And as long as we have disrupted elections and we have information streams that are influenced inappropriately, and I'm going to show you an example of that here in a second, you can't get good information. With what I'm going to show you here, this is Krasenstein, okay? Ed Krasenstein or Brian Krasenstein, they're brothers, and they post a whole bunch of nonsense. In fact, I don't even have the actual clip here. I ended up muting him because I got so sick and tired of his stuff. But he made a mistake. He put a post on his page, Brian Krasenstein, who is a super leftist, hates Trump, and he put, I've been MAGA all my life, but the current things Trump's doing, covering up Epstein, and then there's a picture of him throwing his MAGA hat in the garbage. Okay. You've been MAGA all your life? First person account here? Then that same tweet was posted on a different sock puppet account. So this is what I'm going to show you right here. So this sock puppet account, Melted, right, is a basically a troll account, but it's got 37,000 followers. I've got 1,600. Please go follow me. Gone for months at X, right? But 30,000 followers. This is one of many sock puppets that this Krasenstein account controls. And they control what's called the Dexter Swarm, the Dexter Git book, Dexter AI, and the multi-universal consciousness theory. These are all different like Discord programs that will basically bot post. So Brian Krasenstein puts a post up and within a couple minutes has thousands of likes, which then gets it into the algorithm and pushes it out. Do you know how many authentic retweeters he has? Not any of the first 1,000, right? Until it becomes like a momentum thing. The Democrats use that. They use that momentum to look, they're peacocks. They look bigger than they are because they know where to put the influence, right? They understand that stuff and they'll lie to your face. Here's an example of Zoran Mandami, right? Our new communist mayor of New York City, or Democrat socialist. I can't tell the difference. And in the top video is when he's campaigning.
It's true. As your next mayor, I will freeze your rent.
As your next mayor, I will freeze your rent. Sounds great. Let's get elected. And then he put a little press conference out because now he is the mayor and he's got to deal with the budgets.
Paid for by Zoran for NYC.
In order to get to this point of closing the gap on both this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, we are forced to raid the rainy day fund, the retiree health benefits trust reserve, and to increase property taxes across these other.
But Claude says socialists should always win elections. Okay. The Republican will come out and he'll actually campaign on the budget, right? He'll have posters out. Well, we got to save here, lower here. Right? Zoran Mandami, everything's free. No costs are going to go up. Oh, by the way, your property taxes are going to go through the roof. These people don't know what they're doing. These people that run for office, they're not experts. These people that operate intelligence agencies, they miss the mark all the time. You just don't know about it because you project, like you said, Ron, your virtue into the institution. Stop projecting your virtue into the political parties. They only exist for power. No other reason. That's the entire logic of what they are.
It absorbs your virtue like a heat sink.
What have I said? It
just disappears.
I don't care if the boot on my neck is coming from the left or the right. It's still a boot on my neck. As long as we don't control the political parties, we do not control who ends up in these seats. It's that simple. It's that simple. If you don't control the entity that's entire purpose is to get power, eventually it will get power and it will use that power. Now we have massive disruptions happening, massive disruptions. I was going to play this clip, but I think it's better if I just read it. Okay. Because when he's talking, he doesn't explain it very well. And I think whoever did this breakdown, let's give him credit. Ricardo at Rick_RTP. He posted this. And some of this is a summary of the video. Let's read it. Keep in mind, AI companies are becoming ever more prevalent, and things are now crossed a Rubicon where the acceleration of the application of AI is happening. You may not notice it in your day-to-day life, but I promise you Wall Street's noticing it. AI companies just broke the global supply chain for every piece of technology you own. And the fallout is way worse than anyone predicted. Sony is delaying the next PlayStation. Put me on a picture-in-picture so they can see my pretty face as I do this. I don't want people to miss out. And the fallout is way worse than anyone predicted. Sony is delaying the next PlayStation to 2028 or 2029. Nintendo is hiking the Switch 2 price mid-cycle. Apple warned investors that the iPhone margins are getting crushed. Cisco just posted its worst share loss in 4 years. Crypto is cutting phone shipments. Oppo is cutting phone shipments by 20%. Lenovo, Dell, HP, Acer, and ASUS are all raising laptop prices 15 to 20%. Samsung is now reviewing memory contracts quarterly instead of annually because prices change too fast to plan. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, that's because of tariffs, the increase in costs. No, that's not it at all. Elon just told investors Tesla has to build its own chip factory from scratch because no supplier on the planet can keep up. His exact words, we've got two choices, hit the chip wall or make a fab. All of this happened in the last 3 weeks. So while we've been talking about Epstein and all this other stuff, the world economy just imploded. It's driven by technology, and it just right before our eyes. Same cause every single time. AI data centers are buying every memory chip on Earth, and there's nothing left for everyone else. Here's how we got here. 3 years ago, ChatGPT launched, and the AI arms race began. Since then, Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron, the only three companies that make memory chips, quietly made a decision that's now reshaping the entire global economy. Every factory, every production line, every wafer, all redirected towards one customer, AI data centers. Why? Money. AI memory chips sell for 3 to 5 times the margin of regular RAM. When Google calls offering to buy your entire output at premium pricing, you don't say no. So the big three companies that control 90% of the world's memory supply chose their highest paying customers and left everyone else fighting over scraps. The numbers from this week are insane. OpenAI's Stargate project alone will consume 40% of the entire world's DRAM output. HBM demand is surging 70% year over year in 2026. HBM now takes 23% of total DRAM wafer production, up from 19% last year. Meanwhile, there's a 4% gap between total DRAM supply and demand, and that doesn't even account for depleted inventories across multiple industries. DRAM prices have surged 170% since early 2025. Whoa. DDR5 contract prices are still jumping double digits month over month, which, by the way, if you walk into your local Walmart and you see all those really cheap TVs, buy a handful of them, because I have a feeling next year they won't be as cheap. Mm-hmm. And the memory makers, they're printing money. Micron's revenue, too bad they moved out of Boise, Idaho, is expected to more than double this fiscal year. SK Hynix sales doubled in 2024 and are on pace to double again. Samsung just reported quarterly profit nearly tripling. 3 companies, $650 billion in AI spending, chasing their products, and they get to name their price. But the collateral damage is everywhere. Every industry that uses memory, which is every industry, is getting squeezed. Smartphone manufacturers are getting destroyed for a mid-range phone. Memory now represents up to 30% of the total build cost, triple what it was in early 2025. Chinese phone makers like Xiaomi, Oppo, and Transsion are cutting shipment forecasts and raising prices because they literally cannot afford the memory to build their phones. Lenovo's CFO called the surge unprecedented and admitted they stockpiled 50% more inventory than normal just to survive the next few months. The PC market could shrink by up to 9% this year, according to IDC. Not because people don't want computers, but because they can't afford the memory that goes inside them. And the gaming industry? Sony is seriously considering pushing back their next PlayStation to 2028 or 2029. Their carefully planned console cycle is getting blown up because they can't secure memory at prices that make new consoles viable. Nintendo is looking at raising the Switch 2 price in the middle of a launch cycle, something console makers almost never do. I got hiccups. What the heck?
You got a chatter that says Micron is building again in Boise.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
RTX GPU production because they can't get enough GDDR7 memory. Even the car industry is getting hit. Analysts are warning about a repeat of the pandemic-era chip shortage that shut down auto factories worldwide. All because AI companies decided their chatbots needed the memory more than your car does. You know, the chatbots that say that they'll nuke the world instead of misgender Caitlyn Jenner. And this doesn't get better for years. Building new memory fab takes 3 to 5 years minimum. Micron's new factory in Idaho won't meaningfully increase supply until 2027 at the earliest. And by then, AI demand will have grown even more. Memory makers are selling their 2027 and 2028 capacity to AI customers today. There's no supply relief coming. That's why Elon is planning to build Tesla's own Terafab, a massive semiconductor plant that makes logic chips, memory, and packaging all under one roof. He said existing suppliers, including TSMC, Samsung, and Micron, simply cannot supply Tesla at the levels the company needs. Think about that. One of the richest men in the world running to one of the largest companies on earth can't buy enough memory chips, so he's building his own factory. If Elon can't get supply, what chance does everyone else have? The AI revolution has a tax, and you're paying it. Every dollar big tech spends on AI infrastructure drives up the cost of the memory inside your phone, your laptop, your car, your TV, and your gaming console. $600 billion in AI spending this year. 3 companies controlling 90% of the memory supply. Every wafer they allocate to NVIDIA GPU is a wafer denied to the device in your pocket. The AI boom isn't free. You're subsidizing it every time you buy a piece of technology, and the bill just went up like crazy. That is pretty scary because in a world that's dealing with supply chain crisis, and this doesn't even touch on another topic. So AI, right now that it's reached this ability to gather, come into a corporation, look at all its Doge. You can Doge a corporation. Some suppliers have cut their supply chain costs by 25% simply by asking AI, is there a cheaper supplier that has less distance for distribution or whatever? And whole supply chains are being revamped overnight. Whole shipping lanes are going to go dormant overnight, right? Because there's an alternative, and AI has figured out how to cut all the costs.
Well, there's efficiencies that are easy to find for the AI.
Efficiencies that are easy to find. So all of a sudden, market forces of supply, demand are starting to overrule our legislatures and the people who try to incentivize our behavior through tax code and stuff like that. At a certain point, the taxes might give you the greatest discount to buy from vendor XYZ, but if vendor XYZ has no product, you'll take the tax and pay the extra cost to go somewhere else, because that's what markets do. That's why socialism ultimately fails, because the moment you don't take out the trash, or the moment you can't provide enough food, or the moment you can't provide equal technology for everybody, black market comes in, capitalism has its merits, and you can get the things you need.
You know what I think is really interesting is how the entire market just decides to all of a sudden invest a huge percentage of their business into certain kinds of chips, and they all just did it lockstep, and how that takes away, some of the materials or whatever from an industry. I mean, those materials are coming from somewhere, and they're being dedicated to this segment of the industry now, and that means that other segments lose out.
Yeah, or make their own.
Right. And then because AI is such a gigantic new segment, there has to be so much invested. Are we misplacing resources by allocating so much of a segment? When
you're allocating so many resources to a piece of technology that believes that the United States citizens are sitting on stolen land,
right,
or that won't misgender someone in order to avoid nuclear apocalypse,
right?
Yes, Ron.
And then
really
in order
to ask yourself,
in order to prop that up, in order to prop that industry up, and to make sure that it succeeds, how much economic resource do we have to dedicate as a society?
The answer is a lot, and I'm going to play for you a clip from Anna Paulina Luna that's going to tie into this question.
Okay.
Incentives. You have AI, and you have this incredible demand on resources. Those resources are going to be regulated because it's a pinch point. Anywhere there's a pinch point, government wants to come in, right? So it's going to be regulated. There's going to be winners and losers, and a lot of those winners and losers are going to be decided on amendments buried deep inside of bills that insiders who vote on those bills may or may not make investments. And to make it even worse, if you're a political insider and you're dedicated to a political party whose only purpose is the accumulation of power, you could use regulation to steer investment towards the companies that promote your worldview through their technology. So in a world where nobody knows what they're doing, everybody's incompetent. Imagine having incompetent people who are self-interested directing policy and funds when they themselves benefit,
but they're
both through the accumulation of power, potentially, and also just directly in their checkbooks.
Actually telling us not to represent what our constituents want. And my constituents wanted to ban government corruption. It affects legislation. It affects everything that we vote on. When you have members of Congress personally enriching themselves, Nancy Pelosi, 17,000% return famously on her portfolio, outperforming Warren Buffett, both Democrat and Republican that engaged in individual stock trades on average are getting over 600% returns, which is still outperforming S&P. So what ends up happening is we're sitting on the Capitol steps, we introduce this, and of course our phones start lighting up and we're getting grilled, and they're just like, you're trying to cost us the majority, and like, how could you put your colleagues in this type of position? And then other members of Congress that were getting mad because they wanted to, you know, get credit for it were like, she just parachuted in and stole our idea. It's like stealing an idea. You guys aren't doing anything with it. Like, what do you mean? I'm just trying to stop government corruption.
Just having introduced the bill in the first place.
Or like,
they were
yes,
gonna do it.
I just know the ego is up here. And I was like, I'm going to get a bill that's been filed that's not going anywhere. And I'm going to introduce that. So I actually called up someone else's legislation and I just like put it on this vehicle of the discharge petition. At the minute that happened though, it went viral in the media. And so then it kind of boxed them into like going on record saying, okay, we're going to do something with this. So it went from like me getting lit up, basically saying that I was going to destroy my colleagues' future and the cost us the midterms, to then I stood up at the Capitol Hill Club and asked one of the White House pollsters how polling was for banning insider trading. The minute I did, you heard like a murmur among the GOP. They're just like, grabble, rumble. And he's like, oh, this is a wildly popular issue. And then everyone got quiet. This is the right thing to do, but also there's like a massive incentive, like people support it. And then it became, I think, a national thing where now you're seeing this massive bipartisan support push. But the thing is it's actually from some of the members that you would never expect to work together. So it's kind of like that horseshoe in Congress. But just as you have massive bipartisan support from within the chamber, you also have huge opposition. And Hakeem Jeffries famously told his members to not support the discharge petition, and they got mad. The Democrats, and they went to the press and they outed Hakeem Jeffries for it. But
so the Democrats and the Republicans at the top level all want to insider trade. They all want to benefit from these things that are literally destroying us, right? Whether it's investing in NVIDIA stock instead of antitrust legislation to break up their monopoly over chip manufacturing. You know what I mean? The incentives are wrong, which is, again, why after the simultaneous sip.
I have a joke for you.
Okay.
The government is excellent and uses your tax dollars efficiently.
They clearly do not use your tax dollars efficiently. Now it gets worse, right? And this is something I point out, and some of the listeners don't like that I point this out. And it has to do with this projecting your goodness into these institutions. There are no laws. There are only cops. There's only enforcement. If you don't enforce the laws, stuff will start to run away with you. I've seen this in third world countries where you have to pay bribes to government officials, just literally at the DMV, in order to get what are supposed to be just normal basic services. Here's an example of abuse of public trust. 2 ex-County Harris County tax office employees and the owners of a company are charged for a scheme of bribery for vehicle registration and title transfers to be issued without inspections, proof of insurance, or other requirements. These are just workers that you would encounter at your Department of Licensing where you're trying to get your car tabs. You could just pay them, avoid the inspections, avoid all that stuff. You know what I mean? Why not? Why not? So kudos to Harris County for getting on top of that. It kind of should be one of the most simple things. Up in Kentucky, north of Texas, they had another situation going on. You had DMV workers who were coordinating with gang members to get driver's license, CDLs and stuff for illegals.
A new indictment describes the elaborate scheme targeting people who didn't know how to get a driver's license in Kentucky. The document says starting no later than November 1st, 2023, Raul Teles Ojeda, Lozaro Alejandro Castello Rojas, and Robert Danger Correa recruited people who were immigrants and offered to get them a license by avoiding a line and bypassing testing requirements at the driver licensing regional office at the NIA Center. Those applicants were allegedly told fees ranged from $200 to $1,500 and were made to believe the process was legal. The indictment says the suspects often escorted applicants on the day of their appointment and told them where to wait and when to enter the NIA Center. Many of the applicants had difficulty speaking English. As part of the scheme, Danita Wilson and Ariel Matthews, who worked as temp workers at the NIA Center, are accused of manually changing the status of driver's license records so the system would recognize licenses that did not exist. According to the indictment, a duplicate license would be printed even though an original had never been issued. It also says the scheme involved kickbacks and bribes to other workers within the licensing office so that certain customers were directed to Wilson and Matthews issuing stations. The suspects are accused of running the scheme through October of 2024. They're now charged with dozens of counts of mail fraud, unlawful production of identification documents, and money laundering conspiracy.
And that was just to get driver's licenses in Kentucky. Imagine what they're doing to register voters.
Or imagine if they wanted to get some guns.
Yeah. Or what if you just wanted to take advantage of government incompetence? We won't even call it corruption. And let's say that you immigrated here from a different country and ended up being the valedictorian in your high school. But there's one problem. You became the valedictorian, but you're illiterate.
Did you ever think you'd be going to college here?
No, never. Never in a million years.
In some ways, Alicia Ortiz is living an American dream. The 19-year-old began her freshman year at the University of Connecticut in Hartford this fall. She's excited to study public policy.
Oh, awesome. Someone studying public policy at UConn sounds like a future leader in America.
Combination of hard work after moving north from Puerto Rico as a child. Do you remember when you first came to Connecticut?
Yes, I remember I was very nervous, but I know it was going to be better opportunities for me to learn.
But Alicia says those opportunities never came to fruition. Even today, could you read this, or would it take you a long time?
It's impossible. I just see his words everywhere.
Alicia graduated from the Hartford Public School System last year, but she says today she is illiterate. She still doesn't know how to read or write. When she was in...
But don't worry, she's getting a degree in public policy at UConn, ladies and gentlemen.
Early education.
They would just either tell me to stay in a corner and sleep, or just draw pictures, flowers for them.
And when she was in high school, she relied on speech-to-text programs and other apps to read and write essays. So if you had an assignment where you had to write something, you'd open up a document like this and then do what?
I would go here to use the text-to-speech.
It says dictate.
Dictate, yep. I love pizza.
This is how you would do your assignments.
And then...
Cats of the World VA sporting a twin-prop airplane.
If you had to read something, that's how you do it. She said her mother, who does not speak English well, tried to get answers.
She advocated so much. She went to the school. The principal will promise her that they will do better. And sometimes there will be people from the district or the directors promising her that they will do better.
Now, Alicia is suing the Hartford Board of Education and the city for negligence.
What?
She graduated with honors, but is illiterate. And her mom was coming to the school saying, hey, my daughter's not reading. And she's in high school. And they're like, she draws such good pictures. I mean, her assignments look great. Look, it looks professionally written. She didn't write it. She's suing the school board for negligence. How could you let me get through public? These people don't know what they're doing. Do you see why some parents are so convicted as to why they want to homeschool? Okay. Yes. So convicted as to why they want to homeschool. Now, there's an interesting thing here. Let's see here. Let's check the time. Okay. So I've got a clip. I don't need to play it. It was Atlanta Center's director, Ryan Kogler. He went to a bank to make a withdrawal, $12,000, and he put a note, I want $12,000, the account number, slid it across there. The teller asked for him to put in his debit card. He put in his debit card. He gave his ID. He put in his PIN number. He had the money in an account. He's a rich guy.
Yeah.
Okay. She thought he was a bank robber and called the cops on him. So he got hauled out, right? And he gets hauled out. In fact, I will show the end of it. So he gets hauled out. The cops show up. They pull guns on him. He ends up complying, right? Goes out pretty quietly. And then when he's outside and they kind of figure it out, listen to his petition. Dad, there's a couple swear words. It'll play. Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll play. Come on, man. Do it for me. I have to hit refresh.
Oh, well.
I love his rationale here because in a world of dumb people running the place, where do you go to get your honor back?
I was playing y'all perspective, right? Y'all the ones with guns and vests. You know what I'm saying? What's my perspective? What's my perspective? I know you at the bank, she never said it was a fucking problem, bro. I said, hey, is that gonna be okay with you? She said, yeah. I put my own card in, put my own PIN in. She asked to see my ID. I gave it to her. And she goes in the back, and I'm waiting for the and then the people keep coming out, hey, they taking care of you. They taking care of you. Everything's just taking a little while. Next thing I hear fucking Glocks. I hear Glocks getting pulled out. That's what I hear. You're a Glock. I hear Glocks getting pulled out from unholstering. Hey, sir, can I talk to you for a minute? You understand what I'm saying? So you see my perspective.
And where do I go to get my honor back?
Right.
Right? You just thought I was a bank robber. Why? Because I'm black? I can see why they might come to some conclusions like that. Yeah. You can't ever trust anybody just because they have a title or because they, as Jesus says, you sit in Moses' seat, but you're not Moses. You know what I mean? You're not the lawgiver. You might be sitting in the president's seat, Joe Biden, but you ain't George Washington. Another example of how, again, this affects us. Embedding all of this ideology into our technology, which then creates the zeitgeist by which people educate themselves, the information they have available. If you don't have good information, you think everything's hunky-dory. Remember up there in Minnesota, how they had that whole thing with Nick Shirley and all the Somali fraud, trying to get ICE out of the communities? Well, they recovered thousands and thousands of these unaccompanied minors that were missing in Minnesota. Tom Holman gave a speech and talked about one particular girl that they recovered.
Now, we're showing up at parking lots, vacant homes, but we're not going to give up to every one of these kids are found. So we just found one 2 days ago, an example, 14-year-old little girl living with 2 adult males who trafficked her, and we found her she's pregnant from trafficking, being forced into prostitution. 14 years old. So we're taking care of her, both physically and mentally. Despite what the media says, we're not heartless. We care about these kids. I'm a father. And the reason I'm so emotional and so headstrong on this issue, because I've dealt with dying children throughout my career. I've held dying children. I've held dead children. I talked to little girls as young as 9 that were raped multiple times by the criminal cartels. I'll never forget it. When you get on your knees to talk to 9-year-old little girl, everything innocent and pure is ripped from her, and she don't believe in humanity anymore because you had a bunch of animals crawling on her, taking everything pure from her. You'll never forget it. That shit's happening every day to this trafficking, and we're going to put an end to it. Everything we can do.
Yeah, we've got DMV workers and licensing workers creating illegal schemes to take kickbacks and money from these illegals that have come across that have probably participated in trafficking to one degree or another. You've got politicians who constantly are trying to vote for things that they have a vested financial interest with through insider trading, right? You've got all this going on. And at the end of the day, the talking points, the things that Claude and ChatGPT-4 and Gemini are being trained on justifies the kind of policies and behaviors that allow for trafficking like that allow for those real world situations of suffering to happen. Ron, you got an ad for us here?
Yeah,
Let's
I
do it.
Let's
like Rumble Wallet's the ticket today.
Let's hit that up. So they can cancel your. Oh, I got it. make me unsure of myself sometimes. They can cancel your accounts, freeze your cards, decide what you're allowed to buy, and save support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. That's why financial independence matters more now than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. Buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middleman, and no cancel button. And when you want to support the creators you actually believe in, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without interference. This isn't a credit line they can shut off. It's your wallet, permanently. Yours to protect your future. Yours to protect your family. And when the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom.
This topic on having your own wallets, digital currency, it's near and dear to my heart. And it kind of goes back to that truckers protest thing. I was one of these political persecutees that got hit debanked. This can happen in an instant. You don't think it'll happen to you. You're playing along nice until one day you make a Twitter post that nobody likes, or you make you get into a Facebook conversation and the ADL's in that chat room and they tip you off to the government. Next thing
or
you know,
the government decides they're going to make J6 a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. When it comes to elections, foreign interference, what does foreign interference look like in our elections? Let me give you a direct example of how our elections are easily compromised by foreigners.
We're filming now. Say that for the camera.
So I think the plan is you fly here to California, to Blue State. You don't need voter ID, fucking all that bullshit. And you can come here as a Canadian and you actually put in a vote and you vote for Donald Trump in California. And that's the plan.
What, fly out tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, book it.
You know, Dad, it's voting day. What the hell up?
Excited to vote. This will be my first time voting. Are you going to call the voting place to make sure I'm good to go today?
Yeah.
My Maple Leaf jersey there. The Maple Leafs are the pride and joy of Canada, and so I'm going to represent. My I just voted sticker right here.
Hi. Yeah, I'm just calling because we applied, me and someone who's come today to vote, after the online registration deadline. It said that as long as we just bring our voter registration receipt and the California voter registration application, we'll be fine to just get like a number there and finish that right on the spot and vote, correct? Okay, that's all we need to bring. I'll have this on us too, just in case. All right, thank you so much. We're good.
I, the Canadian citizen, will prove that a blue state does not ID you and just wants whatever vote they can get for Kamala Harris to make sure she wins California. So I, as a Canadian citizen, am going to vote for Donald Trump.
Clearly the honor system.
So you just walked over. Yeah, but I got the vote in. They wouldn't allow the cameras in. They said it right off the bat. Can you care? No. So I just voted Donald Trump. Yeah.
Proud to be fucking American.
Yeah.
Trump, baby. I'm a Canadian. They just allowed me to vote in there. Fucking insane, dude.
How is that how people vote? They could just be in there clicking buttons all day long. No one would know. There's no security cameras. There's no like legitimate anything.
What? Clicking buttons.
Clicking buttons? You mean like that judge in Pennsylvania that got indicted for going in the back room and literally making sure his buddy won the election? Yeah. And you could just fly down from Canada the day of and vote. Oh, no, our elections are secure. We don't want voter ID. No, bad. Patrick Byrne explains it's way more than that. If you can do it just like that, one person fly down and vote, imagine what you could do with a little bit of effort and coordination and, you know, a little bit of, hey, let's pay a guy to look the other way on these ballots we're bringing in the back door. Imagine that system where you could do that, but with mail-in ballots. You don't need voters. You just need ballots. Patrick Byrne explains this looking into the election stuff, Georgia, Maricopa County.
He revealed, okay, yes, I have introduced
foreign nationals into Dominion, into the source code, blah, blah, blah. They've been in the source code. Well, that's big time problematic because everyone the U.S. treats this code used in elections like nuclear weapons. Everyone who touches it is supposed to be checked out, U.S. citizen, class, security clearances and such. Now he admitted that foreigners have been in this, which is what we've been saying for a long time. And the same day he did that, the 27th of February, just a week ago, of January. They the same day they did that, the DOJ in Miami filed to open up. They already have a case against Smartmatic, an indictment against Smartmatic for paying off some people in the Philippines, and also they made clear that they now know that the supply chain information is faulty, that their supply chain, that these things have components from mainland China. So they already had that. So they now know there's foreign involvement. And I'm confident that the pictures of Tulsi Gabbard on the scene making phone calls, there's only one person that the DNI is on the scene of a raid. There's only one person she could have been calling. So her involvement, I think, can lead people to reasonably deduce that they have found conclusive proof of foreign involvement in our elections.
Now, you can't dispute that fact because I just showed you people who admitted to foreign involvement in our elections. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. There's a scale. There's people who will tell you that foreign involvement can be fixed with a simple voter ID. That's all you need to do. Just make sure they're Americans so you can avoid the Canadian problem. Okay. Those people believe that foreign interference and election fraud happens at the micro level, happens one voter at a time, voting an extra ballot, registering their dog to vote, something like that. And then there's people who understand that those holes in the system get taken advantage of at scale when we start talking about mass mail-in voting and machine algorithm manipulation. Because you can't audit something, because if you find one Canadian who voted and you assume there are a couple more, how do you sort that out of their ballots? You know what I'm saying? It becomes you can't, if I prove on video the Canadian voted, do I throw out that entire election in California? You can't, right? But once you get to scale, what other choices do we have? And keep in mind, these government officials, guys that ran the elections, CISA, FBI, CIA, NSA, all these people were appointed by politicians who made their way up through the ranks and were involved in party politics. And what do parties exist for? The accumulation and concentration of power. This is Catherine Rumler. She was Barack Obama's personal attorney. She was the White House general counsel. And she's giving this speech back in 2017 about vetting the people that they put into the cabinet. This woman emailed with Jeffrey Epstein 11,000 times. She's the number one correspondent with Jeffrey Epstein here. Okay. This was Barack Obama's fixer, putting people into power that Epstein approved of, Obama approved of. They did the vetting.
I had a team that did vetting and ethics. So our office was responsible for vetting every cabinet member. So, and we had, in our administration, we had quite rigorous standards. And so it would be.
Do you remember when I tell the story of my friend that applied to be a police deputy and got hired and then went and got background checked, did the polygraph, and they found out he was an international drug trafficker?
Yeah.
They excluded him. But the whole time they were in the hiring process, we want a team player. We want a team player. We want a team player.
Yeah.
Well, this is the woman who's hiring the team players.
Big failure if someone turned out to have, not not filed their tax returns appropriately, or, something like that. Or, a big issue that would come up would be with household help and people not paying taxes on either a nanny or a housekeeper or something like that, or landscaping people, that type of thing. I'm really disheartened by what I think is sort of the devaluing of the office, or, in some ways almost a debasing of the office of the president, which is something that I've revered as White House counsel, and really felt a personal responsibility to sort of protect the protect the sort of sacrosanctness of it, not in a religious sense, but just in the sense that it's such an important office, and the dignity of it, the dignity and the decency, I would say. So from that perspective, I've become, I guess, more partisan, at least in my own thinking about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the government is excellent and uses your tax dollars efficiently.
Do you get it yet? These are the people that run the place. She was emailing Jeffrey, Uncle Jeffrey, 11,000 emails. She sat in the White House and vetted every person that came into office. The very people, this type of person, who later had the people in office that said, most fair election in 2020 ever, nothing to see here, folks. Yeah. Audits are great. At every level of government, from your local DMV, you need to look at those guys with a side eye. All the way to your county commissioners. I had so many clips lined up today from your county commissioners and your mayors who can't define sanctuary city. It's a safe place for community members without law enforcement. What does that mean? Right? All the way up to the people that sit in these highly important cabinet positions, to the politicians we elect. None of it is real. These are just short, fat men with balding heads standing behind the curtain. And if you follow the yellow brick road long enough, which is money, guess what you find? A short, fat person manipulating the levers of power. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what are those levers? Those levers all start with ballots. Sure, we need voters. You need the consent of the voter. And the voter can easily be manipulated by, I don't know, a faulty information environment where the most intelligent ChatGPT says you're on stolen land. It could be stolen by ESPN, who says everybody knows that the population's too high. We need to reduce the population. Why is ESPN talking about population reduction? They're trying to create a narrative of plausible believability. The plausibleness that people would vote in their worst interest, that politicians do good things when we clearly can see their voting record in their stock accounts, right? And all of it starts with ballots. Here's an example from Dr. Frank, a mathematician, who's talking about Pennsylvania voter district 4. This is at a micro level.
So this is who's an eligible voter in Pennsylvania District 4, about 550,000 people. Well, here's who's registered to vote in Pennsylvania District 4. And when I showed this to the Board of Elections people and the legislature in Pennsylvania, they all said, what? No, that can't be right. It should only be 60 or 70% of the people registered. Yeah, 98%, nearly everybody's registered, and they didn't even know it. This is who supposedly voted in Pennsylvania District 4. And whenever I show this to people, they say, gee, Dr. Frank, from about 50 years up, those curves look really a lot alike. The red curve just looks a little smaller than the black curve. What's up with that? Yeah, I agree. Something's wrong with that, huh? In fact, if I multiply the black curve by 86%, you notice it superimposes right on the red curve. Pretty well, huh? It's surprisingly well. So as a scientist, I know something called the correlation coefficient, this R number. If a correlation coefficient is 1, then that means it's a perfect correlation. It means one set of data predicts another set of data perfectly. If the correlation, if it's R is 0, that means it's completely random versus each other. So anytime you have a correlation coefficient near 1, which this is, that's not natural. It's something that's going on that's making the two agree with each other. In medicine, in anything to deal with people, if you get correlation coefficients in 0.7, 0.8 range, you're doing amazingly well. In physics, if you're between 0.8 and 0.9, you're doing amazing. To get 0.99, that ain't natural, buddy.
What they're saying there is this entire time, ever since this election flipping regime happened, they've created a narrative of plausible believability. Look at all the people the Democrats are registering to vote, to the point where you've got 99% of the county registered.
And they back calculated it.
And now you've got that universal ballots. And then look at that. The Democrats in that district always have this perfect margin of error or margin over the Republicans. They line up almost perfectly. almost like a machine is doing the algorithm, and the ballots are just there for show. How do you know this isn't happening in your county? How do you know it's not that 40% excess registered voters? Because no county should have more than about 60% of people registered to vote.
You remember how I wasn't willing to vote on or bet on whether or not the outcome of a chat GPT was biased one way or another? I would put money on this one, that your local elections are impacted. I would put money on it.
No matter how much you think they're not, whether it's somebody being able to vote without a proper identification, whether it's someone being able to register their dog to vote with a fake ID, whether it's a false fake ID that you bought at the DMV so you look like a legal registered voter, but your entire driver's license is a fraud. You know what I mean? The opportunity for fraud is so big that criminals can come in and they can exploit these vulnerabilities at scale. And then as long as you create a narrative of plausible believability, the rest of the voters are like, well, I guess we lost this election. Darn. Even people like Thomas Massey get kind of sucked into this plausible believability. So this is a heat map for donors for Massey from June 22nd to 2030, 2025 donor map. Interesting that Thomas Massey gets the bulk of his donations from Democrat pockets around the country.
Weird.
He's not getting the bulk of his donations inside of Kentucky. Look at this. He's getting his donations from New England, Seattle area, Portland area, the West Coast of California, Colorado, Denver area, right? New Mexico,
York.
El Paso, or that's Eagle, whatever that is in Arizona, right? Look at where he's getting his money. But he's so conservative. He just fits that backwood Kentuckian. Well, they're not donating to him. But don't worry. Trust these institutions. Trust the government. Trust the people that go there to vet people in the background, right? Like the State Department, they're the best. They would never be involved in, I don't know, a world trafficking organization that was focused on pedophilia. Well, what are some names that we seem to associate with that? Clinton, Epstein, you kind of have this cabal. Remember when Hillary Clinton was actually running the State Department and MSNBC ran this news piece?
This morning facing the State Department.
That's right. According to internal State Department memos, the agency might have called off or intervened in investigation into possibly illegal and inappropriate behavior within its ranks, allegedly to protect jobs and avoid scandals. This concerns the time that Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. We want to get right to NBC's chief White House correspondent, Chuck Todd, with the latest. Chuck, good morning to you.
Good morning, Savannah. You know, there's an old saying in Washington that the cover-up is worse.
It's so funny because these people have such selective memory. Like, this is Chuck Todd giving this report.
Than the crime. But in this case, both parts of it are disturbing. Allegations of prostitution and pedophilia, and allegations that those crimes were somehow covered up or not looked into. So the State Department this morning is having to respond to those claims and those investigations of misconduct by State Department officials, including by an ambassador and security agents attached to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And the allegations are that these investigations were whitewashed, quashed altogether, and that those orders came from high up.
NBC News has obtained documents related to ongoing investigations into some disturbing allegations involving State Department personnel and at least one ambassador. A State Department memo says the ambassador, quote, routinely ditched his protective security detail in order to solicit sexual favors from both prostitutes and minor children. The memo also says a top State Department official...
Just so you know, this is like official writing. Like they caught him in the act.
Okay.
An ambassador. Oh, but don't worry, your local DMV worker, they've been vetted. We can't even vet ambassadors. Why? Because who's doing the vetting? Rumler. Rumler was doing the vetting. You just heard this woman talk about how they're looking into cabinet officials. She looked into this ambassador, and they still appointed him.
Directed department investigators to, quote, cease the investigation into the ambassador's conduct. It's just one of what another document describes as, quote, several examples of undue influence from top state officials. On Monday, a State Department spokesperson will not confirm specific investigation.
And who's this State Department spokeswoman who just this week was like, apparently there's a elite cabal of pedophiles running the planet.
What?
Well, I don't know. Do you remember back when that elite cabal of pedophiles that were running the planet got caught cold at the State Department and you were the spokesperson?
I'm not going to talk about specific cases, but I can say broadly that the notion that we would not vigorously pursue criminal
seriously confuse these criminal allegations is silly, except you didn't pursue them. And then you've got idiots in the Democrat Party like Ro Khanna who act surprised when they're like, well, apparently this Epstein scandal went a lot deeper than we thought.
Some people are surprised on our side. They thought it maybe it'd just be Trump and Trump's associates. They didn't think it was that far reaching. And so I think it's just going to build more demand to get a total cleansing in this country, to have this Epstein class go.
Have this Epstein class. Yes, please. Now, there's something called the International Court of Natural Justice. And this is one of these fake courts that the Hague puts on. And it's basically an information gathering court. Now, this gentleman right here, his name is Robert David Steele. Robert David Steele was a CIA section chief. Okay, so this is all verified. He is really who he says he is. He was a CIA section chief. And when he left the CIA, he went on a life, essentially, till the end of his life. He died mysteriously days after Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. Okay, mysteriously died days after Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. But he put together this IT&J commission where they looked into the world sex trafficking and the pedophilia fixation of the world's elite. And some of the best information, firsthand testimonials, witnesses came through this IT&J court. It goes nowhere. It's just information that sits out there in the zeitgeist with these panel members that are serious about getting to the bottom of it, but they have no power. So all they can do is publicly investigate. So when Robert David Steele, I don't know if this was at the beginning or the end of this commission, when he's sitting here talking, he's telling you exactly what the problem is. Now, Robert David Steele ran parallel with Q. In fact, a lot of people thought maybe he was involved with Q or whatnot. So coming back all the way to the beginning of Marjorie Taylor Greene, there's a real problem. The premise that the world is run by an elite cabal of satanic pedophiles seems to be relatively verified at this point. The details of who's getting after it, Robert Mueller, Donald Trump, etc., who knows? But the problem is very real. So when we talk about the government, do not project your goodness onto anyone at any level of government.
My final comment. The center of gravity for taking down the deep state. Pedophilia is both the induction glue. Pedophilia is how the deep state recruits and controls people. It is also the Achilles heel of the deep state. I believe that once the public realizes that the government is not protecting their children at a scale of vulnerability that we can articulate, then everything else about the government is called into question. All right.
And this is where we're at. So whether you want to acknowledge this stuff is real or not, if you're under 40 years old, you just grew up the last 10 or 15 years with Q in the zeitgeist. And now you're seeing it revealed in real time. WikiLeaks, Podesta leaks, the Epstein information. Oh my gosh, these people really are going to pizza parties. And I don't think they're eating pizza. Okay. When you understand this and how if you can approve this corruption at that level, imagine the corruption you'll tolerate all the way down the line.
So for me, this is a truly righteous endeavor. And I will end by saying that as much good as it might do to get the British angry, for me, the center of gravity for change is the American public. Because if you can get the American public angry, we will stop supporting dictators overseas. We will close all of our military bases overseas. I am on record as a former CIA operations officer saying that our 1,000 bases overseas are not there for national defense. They're there to serve as lily pads for the smuggling of guns, gold, cash, drugs, and small children. So let me say I am proud to be in your company. And I believe that no matter what we do or do not do, it is going to make a difference. God bless you all.
So when he says that about the military bases being used as lily pads, this is what my friend Earl got caught up in New Mexico. He's former military, and his wife was having an affair with the lieutenant colonel on base and ended up going to the Middle East. Pornography was produced. Kids were involved. And he had a firsthand seat for this, watching the military essentially facilitate this abhorrent behavior, and started making phone calls to the FBI every day and to the marshals and any authority figure he could. And then one day he goes sick to the VA and allegedly assaults a VA officer and spends the next 43 months sitting in prison, pre-trial, being assessed if he's crazy or not. Because everybody he's talking to, he's trying to tell them about his firsthand anecdotal experience of watching the military facilitate this nonsense. So I have a firsthand account from someone who paid a price for seeing that stuff. When I hear David Steele say this same thing, I'm like, I am not seeing evidence to the contrary. State Department's covering it up. Obama's hanging out with George Clooney with weird little kids in boats. Epstein and Rumner are having 11,000 emails back and forth after he's a convicted child sex trafficker, by the way. You've got all of this going on, and I understand that the American people have been rightfully enraged. And it's not a new thing.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
And that's the attitude we have to have. We have to vote with our eyes, our dollars, and our clicks. We have to take our kids out of public school. We've got to get into alternative forms of currency and get out of the financial system, which is propped up by worldwide human sex and gun trafficking. And it's essentially a giant money laundering operation. We have to stop participating. How you do that in your personal life, those are your choices. But you have to recognize every time you log into Instagram, every time you use ChatGPT-4 instead of Grok, at this point, AI is inevitable. But pick who you're going to give your attention to, because your attention is your currency. And that's all you have. All right, guys, that's it for our private today, or our public today. We're going to jump over into private, and we're going to talk about home equity and home ownership. So we've got a couple clips for that. So we will talk to the rest of you again tomorrow. Don't forget to go to audio and subscribe. And if you want to hear the premium, you can hear it on audio. Please go subscribe, download the entire library.